Cinema Lounge. Marshall, sorry I couldn't make it last week.
Yeah, what the heck?
What the heck? There was some prior. I had a conflict arose internally.
We're about to have some conflict.
Because I didn't show up?
That's right.
I'm sorry. Our weekly hangout at the Cinema Lounge, I didn't make it, but it's good to be back.
We're gonna have so much conflict, and I'm going to cross-examine you and and
good connection.
And I what else? I can.
Now I'm gonna write the.
I'll
F
have
word
somebody
on my
tell
forehead.
You that. Hey, you did research. Nice. I like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got rear-ended last week.
Oh, nice.
That's why I couldn't make it.
Really?
No, it really did happen. That's not why I didn't make it to the Cinema Lounge. But
wow.
I did get rear-ended last week. And I haven't decided what to do about it. No, I know.
Huh. Buy a new car.
I guess so. I mean, I went and got an estimate, and the part was $500 for a new bumper, but the labor cost was $700. So to do everything else, so now I'm deciding. The girl who rear-ended me asked if I could not use insurance. She didn't want her insurance numbers to go up, and then I gave her the quote, and she said the labor cost is way too high on that. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do about that. So,
sorry.
So I don't know if I'm gonna ask her to Venmo me and be cool, Venmo me for the money for the parts, or if I'm just gonna go through insurance. I need to figure that out. I have not mentally taken the time to do that this week because school's over now. Yeah. But I was trying to get through that, and I hadn't taken the time just to sit and decide what to do. So anyway,
yeah, man. And you're getting married next week?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, all the fun things are happening.
It's great.
It's summer break. Going to Costa Rica after that.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Dude, nice. That's sick.
Gonna be pretty sweet. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun time.
Wow.
Sorry that I'll probably miss another Cinema Lounge. So
yeah, I'll figure something out.
Sorry about that.
This is a slightly more acceptable one.
You should just go meet that guy over there in the corner. That guy we never talked. Yeah, the guy we never talked to in the corner. You should go introduce yourself sometime, and you could just talk to him about movies.
Maybe I will.
Invite him over to our table with the microphones.
Oh yeah.
What do you think his backstory
Ben, you want to hear about
is?
my
morning
and where I'm at right now?
Yeah. Tell me about it. So you were mowing? Like a manly man?
So we got to go further back.
Okay.
So yesterday, I get off work at 10:30, right? I come home. I realized yesterday morning that I had yet to watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
No, I realized that on Thursday evening that I had yet to rewatch the movie, that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, I'll try to watch it before work because I work 2:30 to 10:30. And I woke up at 1:30 the next day and thought, crap, okay, guess I'm not watching it before work. And then I hop off to work. I get off at 10:30. So I come home and I start watching the movie. I'm at like 11 or 11:15. So it's getting late. And I'm taking notes and I'm doing some research while I'm watching. Mm-hmm. And then I kept doing research after the fact. So it's getting late now. Yeah. It is like 1, 2, 3, whatever. And I decide, whatever, hey, you know what? I'm up this late. I'm going to play some Mass Effect. So I did.
Because I'm going a game that you just like turn on for 10 minutes.
No, it's not. No, it is not.
You knew what you were doing.
Well, here's the other thing, though. I had to do laundry. So I was doing all of my laundry. So I was waiting for the clothes to be done in the dryer, essentially.
Nice.
So I could comfortably go to bed.
And this time
but I had forgotten to pass it over from the wash to the dryer until the movie ended. So I had a whole extra hour or something on top of what I wanted to be doing. So that's when I said, okay, I'll play Mass Effect. And basically, it got to about 5 a.m. And there suddenly, I was going to go to bed.
5 in the morning.
I thought, I'm going to mow in the morning.
Why do you even sleep at that point? This is last night?
Well, yes. Well, this morning, I guess. And I knew I had to mow at 8 a.m., right, at the church. And I thought, okay, well, I should try to get a couple hours of sleep. Just get a couple. And I go to my room, which is in the front of the house, and I hear suddenly outside this just constant repeated screaming. But it's this, yeah, and it's in this way that I had never heard before. It sounded like no sound I had ever heard in my life. It was like
Screaming?
someone was attacking a child or something.
The child was screaming? It sounded like a
Yes.
young person?
Yes.
I hear that's what mountain lions sound like. Was it a mountain lion? No way.
So I recorded it. And I'll put that
was your first
in the
thought?
episode right
Your
here.
first thought was, I'm going to record this sound?
Well, yes. Yes, it was. My first thought was, what the heck is happening? You kidding me? It didn't sound human. The closest thing that I could think of was that it sounded like a child. This was not a sound that I'd ever heard in my life.
Wow.
But it did not sound like a human. So I recorded it, and I'll put that in the episode right here. So you will be hearing that, and I'll boost it a little bit. And I sent it to Ben because he lives in the basement. Not this Ben, but Ben, the previous Ben of the show.
The old Ben, previous.
And Weber, not Herbal.
Yeah.
And he immediately sends me back a video of mountain lions screaming, and it sounds identical.
What?
So I'm like freaking out.
He knew too. Wow. He's a smarty.
I was like, what the heck is this? Well, I kind of doubt it, because then basically, I did not go to bed last night, and I've been up since 1:30 yesterday.
Wait, you've been up since 1:30 yesterday? You meaning you woke up at
1:30
p.m. yesterday? You woke up at 1:30 p.m.? Oh, somehow I missed that fact. Wow, your sleep schedule is a mess. So it's not like you're like super sleep deprived. You slept until 1:30 yesterday.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I feel the crash coming on. But I got some things to do.
Show. Well, so mountain lion potentially was outside your room last night.
Yes, I think it was probably a fox, because they make a pretty similar sound. I looked it up.
Really?
I don't know.
Or do you think it was a feral cat in a cat fight? Did it sound like that?
I don't know. Well, I don't know. It sounded like one animal. It didn't sound like call and response. But it was weird. It was strange, and I didn't go to bed. I think, did I just play more Mass Effect? I think I did.
Did you lay in bed for a bit?
It was great. And then I'm in the weird headspace then, because it's like 6 a.m. and it's starting to get bright outside. And at like, whenever I got home to watch the movie, I had a beer, an individual beer, but now it's morning and I'm out and about, and I feel like I've been drinking in the morning, which felt strange to me, even though it was an individual drink like 5 hours previously.
Alcoholism, man.
So
it's a slippery slope.
It's been a weird day and a half, basically. So that's where my headspace is. So we are in prime form to discuss an electrifying political event in American history.
Right. So fun. Marshall, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're alive. I don't understand your body sometimes. Also, I don't understand your decision making of, I'm just going to wait for the laundry to be done and play Mass Effect. Sounds like a recipe for not sleeping. I'm judging you a little bit.
Well, I didn't want to go to bed commando.
Why? It's freeing.
but it's just less comfortable for me.
It's not. You just got to do it a couple of times. It's like drinking coffee. You just got to try it a few times. And then
There have been times, this is great audio. There have been times that I've done this where I have had to do laundry late at night because I forgot to do it earlier. And I've said, screw it, I'm going to go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to wait for the dryer to be done.
What do? You
and
take off all your clothes and throw them in the washer every time? You're walking around the house in the nude?
No, not completely.
Why are you not? Why don't you just? How is that any different than normally sleeping? You put on fresh underwear before you go to bed?
Sort of. So because I shower 2 times a day.
Oh. Okay.
Because I shower in the morning before work, and then after I get home from work and I'm all gross and sweaty, so I shower again. Mm-hmm. So I'm putting on a new fresh pair.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna put time codes in the in the description.
Why? That's great. If you want that.
It's like no one wants to hear this.
No, this is interesting. I enjoy hearing about your routine. It's very different from mine. So you put on some fresh undies and get in bed usually.
Yes, I do.
But last night you were unable to because you had no more fresh underwear.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the pieces are adding up now. I see now why you needed to wait for the dryer.
The pieces are adding up now.
Yeah. You're not sleeping in sweaty underwear. You just gotta.
No.
You gotta commit to it for a week. Just do it.
I can't stand feeling grimy at all.
No, that's not what I'm asking you to commit to for a week. I'm suggesting you commit to a week sleeping.
Commando?
With just you in the sheets.
No. I'm not gonna do that.
Okay, that's fine.
It's not gonna happen.
Okay,
that's good.
It's a
because I'm not going to.
Okay, I'm not gonna make you do anything. I'm not gonna make you do it. I can't do that.
I am holding. I am putting. You can. I will. I'm going to. Oh, I got it. What? I'm gonna charge you with an.
You're trying to segue. You're segueing to the movie. It's not working.
I'm trying. I'm charging you with one
contempt of
case of
bedtime.
Contempt of court.
Okay. Good, Marshall. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen the movie, pause the podcast.
What movie?
The movie, the trial of the Chicago 7. Go watch it. It's on Netflix. I think like 90% of the U.S. population subscribes to Netflix. Let's figure out what that stat is. Percentage. U.S. I'll pull up my laptop
this week,
here in the cinema lounge. Yeah, keep talking.
Nice. This week in the lounge, we watched the trial of the Chicago 7, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, famous screenwriter, who was a co-creator of The West Wing, wrote the movie The American President, which was directed by Rob Reiner, I believe. So this is a guy who has made his career out of political drama in popular media. And this is no different. This is stellar, and his, very specific style of writing is just fully on display. I think this might be his best work. And I love The West Wing dearly.
I have not started it. I would like to. Maybe that's a summer TV show I should do.
You would like it.
Civics,
I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. It's on HBO. Do you have HBO?
Yeah. I have HBO.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have HBO.
Anyway.
Written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, starring Eddie Redmayne as Tom Hayden, Alex Sharp as Rennie Davis, Sacha Baron Cohen as Abby Hoffman, Jeremy Strong as Jerry Rubin, John Carroll Lynch as David Dellinger, Yahya Abdul-Mateen as Bobby Seale, Mark Rylance as William Kunstler, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Richard Schultz. This is a great movie. Basically, here's the historical context. In 1968, and I've written this. This is my little blurb that I wrote. Yeah. In 1968, in protest to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King and the Vietnam War, a series of protests were held in Lincoln Park as well as other parks during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Eventually, this became a riot, and 8 leaders of various groups involved were chosen to be taken to trial after being charged with conspiracy and crossing state lines with intent to start a riot. Whether that was actually true or not, and are they guilty of this, are they not guilty of this, is then the subject of the court case and of the movie overall.
Therefore, the plot of the movie.
Yes. So that's kind of like where it starts and where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really good. I like this movie a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I am biased to like this movie because I am a civics and history teacher in the public school. So I think ever since I was younger, I liked period pieces and historical drama / just something that is connected with the history and brings it to life in a new way. And yeah, I think especially movies that like do follow, like it's fun in like a trial movie like this where you have like transcripts and things like that you can like draw from historically. Anyway, sorry, I'm deviating. I like this movie a lot. I think it's really fun. And yeah, it's something that I would definitely pull into like a history class or pull into, I don't know. I think it's just fun. So yes, I like this movie a lot as well. It's also really fascinating just reading about the story of the Chicago 8 / Chicago 7 in general. Like it reads just like it's so fascinating. It's such an interesting trial, and like the characters, I mean, if you were writing a script with characters that each have their own thing and their own background that like come together to form an event, like this happened in real life, which is really fun. Like each of these people is brought together with their own background and ideology, specifically set in the 60s, you know? And so it was just really cool how that happened IRL, where you have hippies and you have like political activists and you have a conservative judge and you have, you know, like all of these different,
you know, a conscientious
pieces.
objector,
a Black Panther, and so like all of these things,
the Black Panther,
being brought into this real life event. And I think that's what makes a piece of what makes this movie so compelling, is because the actual story is super compelling and super interesting. I think it's fun how much this movie translates obviously into our current setting, and how I think history, when done correctly, you naturally begin to relate to the characters, which it brings up an interesting historical point that oftentimes in history there's no way you can relate to the people there. I mean, like, let's say we're studying people from 500 years ago. There's absolutely no way I can really put myself in their shoes. I think I can't understand the world they were living in 500 years ago. Like I'm so used to my life that it would be like moving to a different country and trying to say I like relate to the people in this country, because you don't. There are some common human characteristics, obviously, but anyway, so it's really fun going back into like the near future, the 1960s, or near past, the 1960s, and feeling similar ideas and themes to stuff that's happening in the United States now, even just the politics of it all, the trial system of it all, liberals versus conservatives, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. It's fun to relate to that, and I think that makes it compelling as well. So well, and Sorkin has said in interviews that like this is to him not really a movie about the trial of the Chicago 7. It is a movie about our current times, and I think you can see that as well in the way that he kind of plays a little bit fast and loose with the timeline of things, of certain events. Like in this movie, as opposed to in real life, Fred Hampton, the head of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panthers, is assassinated during
when this trial is taking place, and that ends up being what being why Bobby Seale has his big outburst, which then he is, gagged and chained up. Whoa, I hit my microphone. And chained up for. Mm-hmm. Whereas in reality, Fred Hampton wasn't assassinated until far after the trial had ended, and he was gagged and bound and everything, but it wasn't for this reason. And in fact, it wasn't. I've got a whole list of differences here, but in the movie they portray it as being this thing that happened, and then the defense has this huge objection to it, and then Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the whatever the other one is called, the defense and the what's the other side? Prosecution.
Prosecution, yeah.
He also objects. In reality, prosecution had nothing to say about this happening, and the judge didn't really listen to what the defense had to say, and he was left that way for a while. And not just one day, I believe, but for a good amount of time.
I think it was 3 days.
Yeah.
And it ended insane. Up there was accounts of when it first happened, the jury came in and one woman was brought to tears by seeing it, and everybody else was physically uncomfortable, visually uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You could see how uncomfortable everybody was at it, and he would attempt to have outbursts and talk about why they're restricting his freedom of speech. And anyway, yeah, it was wild. Which character out of this let's not say actor, but which character did you find that you connected with on a deeper level, or that you felt like you were drawn to a certain character?
I think that if I had to peg myself as one of these guys, I would probably be David Dellinger, because I am my first instinct was maybe Tom Hayden, but I think I would be Dellinger because I have these strong beliefs about what I think is right and what I think is wrong, but I'm also not the guy like Tom Hayden who's going to be getting up and talking about it and being really vocal about it. And in real life, he was also a lot more outspoken and vocal than they show him being in the movie. Sorkin kind of twists his character a little bit to be this guy who is a bit more on the fence, and his character arc is kind of the more central arc of the story. Whereas in reality, if blood is going to flow, let it flow all over the city, that wasn't as nearly as out of character for him in reality as they make it seem in the movie. They play that to be the big emotional moment, and it isn't quite so crazy of a thing for him to have said in the real life event. And I never would have done that. I can't see myself getting to that place, really. Dellinger, though, especially being, the pacifist and the conscientious objector, I relate to that. I'm the guy who can't stand the movie Fight Club for all of those reasons. But yeah, I think that's what I would say. What about you, big guy?
I think I need to hit it with a rewatch because I think I'm in a place in life where I might be between lots of different ideologies here. Or I think the hard thing for me is that, and I don't know how much of this is being a teacher or my natural predisposition, but I think I kind of live in the gray area and I can see everybody's point of view. And so I think, and I'm tying current event things into this a bit, but I mean I see the perspective of both the people protesting or rioting, and I see the perspective of the shopkeeper who has their window broken in. I think I see both of those perspectives. So it's hard for me to say right now which character I relate to most, because I think I can see all of those motives and backgrounds and beliefs and ideologies and how they blend together. And I can tell you I least agree with the judge, which I suppose is what
Yeah.
everybody feels when they watch this movie. I will be definite in that. What's his actual
Absolutely.
name?
Julius Hoffman.
Julie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Julius. Yeah.
Man.
So
I
how
read a
does
whole
it-
article about how the guys in real life compared to their portrayals in the films, and they all kind of
Oh,
differed a
okay.
little bit.
Okay, nice.
But
Yeah, I
Judge
didn't know that.
Hoffman,
Uh-huh.
apparently completely spot on. Like, this is exactly how this guy was. Completely off the wall. Like, not all there, belligerent. And, in reality, they were also a lot more belligerent with him in reality and everything.
Right.
And it was a bit more of a circus. Like, they had lots of celebrities on the the stand. Arlo Guthrie.
Yeah, a
was-
lot of people who were
was examined.
were a part of the DNC / protest /
Yeah.
all of that. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, just reading the trial stuff. It's just like, wow, what a circus, what a wild
It's crazy.
like moments of like laughing out loud of how absurd like some of the things happening were. Like when he first blows the kiss to the jury. When the judge says his name and he says, for the record, the jury should disregard his kiss, and just like just ridiculous stuff happening, like almost like, is this real life? Is this like a real story? So then I think, Marshall, as well, like any good movie makes you feel something and connect to the story or the movie in a way that applies to your real life away from the screen, away from the movie theater. Did you, after watching this movie, what were your thoughts on real life or connections or things that the movie made you feel and want to look at differently afterwards?
Oh man, this is a movie, and we'll get into talking about the screenplay here, because Aaron Sorkin knows exactly what he's doing. He is writing a movie that is designed to make you mad, to like make you frustrated, and it's interesting as a counterpoint to like, what was the Black Klansman is just as much of a protest movie, especially coming from Spike Lee.
Yeah,
But he, for some reason, that movie doesn't move me as intensely at injustices as this one does. And that's not a perfect comparison. They're not both court movies or anything like that. But this movie, I think partially because so much of it is taken from reality, and especially after reading and being able to clarify what is embellished and what isn't, it's wild seeing on full display how completely messed up our court system can be at times, despite
definitely.
the best efforts of guys like Kunstler and what's his guy's assistant's name? Wineglass.
Blanking.
Is it Wineglass or Fineglass? I feel like Judge Hoffman. I can't get his name right.
Which one? Kunstler and then Wineglass.
Wineglass. Okay, I win. Yes. They're doing the absolute best they can, but on the other side, it's completely a political thing. They're not fighting for any kind of virtue. There's a whole part at the beginning where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, he's playing Richard Schultz. He gets called into the office of, is it the sitting attorney general?
Yes.
And
I'm forgetting his name too. Ramsey Clark.
Right? No, that is Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
he's
that
the
is
previous
Michael
one.
Keaton. I'm blanking.
It doesn't
anyway.
matter.
Yeah.
And it's this whole thing about how he is the attorney general is trying to say, we want to get these guys, we want to make an example out of them.
Yes.
How can we do that? And this law gets brought up that, I don't remember what the specific law was called, but it was basically
really interesting.
designed.
It's actually a sub piece of the Civil Rights Act.
Okay.
Where, like within the Civil Rights Act, there is the law making it illegal to stir up a riot interstate to use any sort of methods of stirring up riots in other states, whether that is by mail or traveling there, or now it applies to the internet as well. So a really interesting piece is like through all of this, like the Civil Rights Act is actually the thing that is like oppressing them, which is kind of fascinating. Anyway, what were you saying though? They were scheming about how they could could get
so
them.
then like Schultz then says, well, that law is just a little addendum that was created specifically to stop protests and stuff from happening. And the Attorney General says, look, I don't care why it's there, and we're going to use it to our advantage.
Yeah.
And that's completely what happens throughout the rest of this, is they're not trying to push any kind of moral truth or anything. They're just trying to win their side of this thing. And they're doing like everything they can to do that without any kind of thought to, the truth of anything, the morals of anything. You see all of these witnesses, quote unquote witnesses, completely falsifying their testimony, every single one. And we can't know for sure that that's exactly true, because it's not like those people, have come forward since then and been like, oh yeah, I said a different thing and that I was actually true or anything like that. But I don't know. It makes me mad, and it makes me, I don't know. I just don't know what I can do to change that system, except for when Abby takes the stand and he talks about something about having a change of power. If you don't believe in your government and you don't believe in what they're saying, then you have the right to change your government. And they ask him, well, how do you do that? It's like, well, we do that every 4 years in this country. It's like, whoa, got him, bam. And that line in itself, I think, is fascinating because the whole reason they're there is because of the Vietnam War and the guy that they are going to nominate at the Democratic National Convention. These are all Democrats. The liberals, I guess, more specifically or more generally. The guy that they're going to nominate at the Democratic National Convention, to their perspective, is not different enough from the sitting president to make any actual difference. And that is the reason they're there, is to figure out, like, well, we need to make a show of what we believe and why this is wrong and why we need to get somebody else the nomination, which doesn't end up happening. That guy gets the nomination, and then, we see how the Vietnam War continues to just go further and further downhill.
Sure. Yeah. An actual statement from Abby Hoffman from the sentencing period that I found, or from the sentencing phase of the trial, that ties into this. So like the actual quote is,
Abby, you know why you're on trial here?
We carried certain ideas across state lines. Not machine guns or drugs or little girls, ideas. When we crossed from New York to New Jersey to Pennsylvania to Ohio to Illinois, we had certain ideas. And for that, we were gassed, beaten, arrested, and put on trial.
Okay.
In 1861, Lincoln said in his inaugural address, "When the people shall grow weary of their constitutional right to amend their government, they shall exert their revolutionary right to dismember and overthrow that government." And if Lincoln had given that speech in Lincoln Park last summer, he'd be put on trial with the rest of us.
So how do you overthrow or dismember, as you say, your government peacefully?
In this country, we do it every 4 years.
That's all.
the idea that like all these different ideologies, like all these guys are brought together. Black Panther, pacifist, conscientious objector, political revolutionaries, you know, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
like brought together, and they're all on the same side against the war, against, you know, I mean, fighting for civil rights, protesting, and and they have these moments of like bickering and arguing amongst themselves over like their own ideologies, and like the real quote unquote enemy in the room is this like the system, or it's like the people in power who are not paying attention to the oppressed or the minorities or the people who can't stand up for themselves. And like if they can create the system where all of those different ideologies bicker and argue amongst themselves, then they remain in power. And what they realize is like, we need to be together in this, and like we're all on the same team here. And I think that was kind of a compelling idea, that however I think it should be different, at least we can all agree that the system is broken and needs to change, but we're never going to be able to get there if we can't ever come together and find a way to compromise and fix it, which I thought was interesting. Also, I think I think good movies weave together, like the main plot is obviously the trial, but we're bringing in all these outside stories and backstories and personalities, and I think it does a good job of weaving in all of those things as well.
No, I agree, and I think that both of those things, both those things, I think that is one of the things that like really parallels to where we're at, politically right now, is that there are all of these like intensely dissenting opinions, and everyone's telling you what you should believe. And if we can just, decide that everybody has their point of view, and I believe I'm right and you believe you're right, and that's not wrong, that we have differing point of views, then like maybe that's not a bad thing to have disagreements. But no, that's too hard.
Here's a question I had watching this. I was curious what you thought. Is let's say, obviously, we're all coming into watching this movie with our own political ideas and such. Do you think somebody who watched the protests of the last year and really disagreed with them, like adamantly, like did not agree with any of the protests going on this last summer, should they watch this movie? Can they watch this movie without, like, I guess how does that viewer take in this movie, do you think? Because I'm watching this as somebody who supported, I went to protest, I went to a couple of marches, and like, how does somebody who is really angry about that, how did they watch this movie?
I think, to me, what comes to mind is the story in Scripture when, is it Samuel that comes to David and he tells him, there was this man and he did this thing and he did this bad thing and he did this bad thing, and King David continually gets more and more disgusted, and he says, well, what should we do with this man? What should happen to this guy who's done all these things, has committed all these transgressions? And, David passes some, terrible sentence. I don't remember what it was. And then I think it was Samuel goes, that was freaking you! It was you! I'm talking about you! And David's like, oh my gosh. And I feel like that's kind of what the experience of this movie would be. And I don't think that they would necessarily get to the point of, that was you! Because there's no one, despite Aaron Sorkin being someone who directly tells you exactly what he wants you to believe in his screenplays. It doesn't quite get to that point, and it doesn't really do that to you. Because it's not ultimately the purpose of the movie. But I feel like the people who are, super against the protests and against the Black Lives Matter movement and all this stuff that happened in the past summer, I think that they would come into this movie and see this as a fight that is like a just one, because you're seeing all of these things that are clearly wrong that are happening, that these people are on the stand, they're lying, it's all of this, like, look at these guys, they're doing this bad stuff, they're being bad dudes, they're not following the law. Because that's the big thing, is law and order, right? We want law and order. And now right here we're seeing that these guys who are law and order are completely throwing that to the wind at every opportunity in order to get their political gain.
Right.
And I think that for some people watching this movie, I don't think that they would necessarily consciously recognize it, but I think in the back of their head it could be kind of convicting to see that and then realize, oh, that was me. Because they talk about the different jurors, right? Because they have the ones that are sympathetic and then they get thrown out, and then they're trying to find the ones to replace them. And it's like, oh, this guy was, he hated his son for protesting the Korean War, and like all of this stuff that, people who are very set in their ways. And I think that is what I would see coming into that. But I don't know. It might not be. And I think it's interesting, too, that then the race element isn't exactly there. Because you get Bobby Seale, who co-founded the Black Panther Party, the group. He's in the movie, and he's in this story, and he's an important part of this story. But he's not really the focus of it, and the race aspect is really kind of just a side element of this. Because, before any of these riots even happened, there were already huge riots in Chicago in response to the assassination of Dr. King. And, I think dozens of people died in those riots. And, Dr. King himself had talked about how he had seen, all of this staunch racism and these intense responses throughout the South. But Chicago was itself one of the worst that he had ever seen. Like, they were intensely forceful in their responses to these kinds of things. So that's not even really touched on in the movie. You get that mention of his assassination, and then of is Bobby Kennedy? Did they talk about that, or has that happened yet? That hasn't happened yet, has it?
I don't know chronologically.
I can't remember.
It hasn't happened yet because it's not until he's running for. Oh shit!
Yeah, of course.
When he's running for president.
Yeah, something like that. But the whole race aspect is almost completely sidelined. Like, it's important and it's there, but it's not really there. And I think that that's interesting then, because you get, instead of a movie about a bunch of leaders of the Black Panther Party or of different black activist groups on trial for these things, it's a bunch of white guys. This is a bunch of people that look like me. These are guys that look like me, and they're being wronged. And that's more sympathetic to, I think, the audience that we're talking about now.
Right.
That, like, I'm seeing all of these people that remind me of myself, that look like me, that have a background like me, and I'm seeing them have all of these wrongs committed to them. Yeah. So now I have this kinship with these people.
Right.
With,
Interesting.
this kind of kinship that I couldn't possibly have with the black community. Yeah. That, like, as much as I, feel the pain of any human death, I don't feel the kind of, like, community and brotherhood and, really inbuilt ancestral
shared,
pain
that
has.
shared experience. Yeah. Ancestrally. Yeah.
And that came up a lot for me, because I've also been listening to Revisionist History, like, a ton, which is a podcast done by Malcolm Gladwell, extremely smart guy. And in his first season of the show, he does several episodes that focus on different aspects of the civil rights movement. And it's fascinating. Like, this crazy stuff that just completely gets overlooked, where, like Aaron Sorkin does in a lot of his screenplays and in this movie, some of the messier elements get tidied up pretty well, and it ends in a pretty rosy manner, which a lot of Sorkin stuff does. Like, it ends, I've written here, with, like, a big fanfare where he has his final statement, and Tom Hayden takes the manuscript that his friend Rennie has been taking, every single day, of the fallen soldiers, from the Vietnam War, and he says, well, this is what I'm going to do for my final statement. I'm going to read every single of the 5,000 some names off of this list. And it's this big triumphant moment of, we know that we're not going to get out of this without jail time, but we are going to make our point. We're going to show you our beliefs and everything. When in reality, it wasn't this big, rosy, happy moment. It was actually David Dellinger that tried to read out a transcript of not just American soldiers that had been killed, but Vietnamese ones. And he was almost immediately shut down. And then they all got, however many years, depending. Let me
5,
find
I
it.
think.
I've got it here.
5 years. And
I've got the
3,000
Wikipedia open. Bobby Seale, political trial. Hold on. Dellinger got 29 months and 16 days on 32 counts of. Is this just contempt? I don't know. Davis got 25 months and 14 days. Freund's got 5 months and 15 days. Hayden got 14 months and 14 days. Hoffman got 8 months and that's it, 8 months. Rubin got 25 months. Weiner got 2 months. Weinglass got 20 months, and Kunstler got 48 months. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Just, I don't know, man. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then, like, IRL, it goes on to the Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
And then, so they are sentenced by the judge, and then the jury acquits 2 of them, and in real life acquits 2 of them, and the other 5 are found guilty, I think, from the research I was doing. And then it goes on to the Court of Appeals, which then the judges make the decision that it was a, oh my gosh, let me get to this. I have it pulled up as well. So they reversed all the convictions because of the building of the jurors. So kind of what you were talking about a little bit earlier. The appeals court found that Judge Hoffman erred in not asking potential jurors about political and cultural attitudes or about exposure to pretrial publicity. So they did not pursue any further prosecution after that. So anyway, back to what you were saying though, like the way the movie ends off with some creative liberty historically, but the fact that they end and say, no matter what, like we're standing for this, we're going down fighting or swinging or what have you. And anyway, interesting.
It's powerful, and I have this kind of just conflicted feeling sometimes about Sorkin for that reason. And in The West Wing, it doesn't bother me as much because it's all fictional, it's all made up. But for something that is based on a true story, and that is also like, you can buy the court transcript for like $15 at Barnes & Noble. Like, and I've thought about it. I thought about checking it out. I was trying to find it online. I figured it would just be public access somewhere. But I couldn't find it. There were excerpts, but I was like, I want to read the whole however many months of the transcript.
4?
Chaos.
4 months?
That'd be insane.
Is that how long it went on for?
I don't know. But Sorkin, I'm a fan of Aaron Sorkin and his work. I love The West Wing, but his tendency to push his agenda is conflicting to me. He doesn't ever leave room for the audience to decide what they think. He's always very clearly telling you what is right or wrong according to him. And The West Wing does this a ton. There'll always be, this big speech at the end where someone suddenly, we're having all these issues and all the snappy dialogue and everyone's so clever and quick-witted. It's kind of like hyper-real dialogue. Like, it's not realistic. It's like, everyone is as smart as Aaron Sorkin in an Aaron Sorkin movie. Like, they're all very, very clever. And to be fair, he's writing about, very smart people who are like all Harvard, Ivy League graduates and everything. But these like very rosy and, we can do it and we've got it and this is what's right and this is what's wrong, it is a bit frustrating to me at times, even as someone who generally agrees with his political points of view. I can find it a little frustrating just because I can see someone on the other side of the aisle not being turned off to this stuff for that reason. I think less so in this than in West Wing, where it's a Democratic party, it's a Democratic president, and it's funny actually because the show started during the Clinton administration. And he loved the show. Bill Clinton and his White House loved the show. They visited the set. They, would talk to Martin Sheen and all of them, and they thought it was great. And then they go out, and George W. Bush's administration comes in, and they reportedly couldn't stand it. They hated it. They never visited the set. They never had any contact with them. And it's interesting because then they go from writing a show that is vaguely about the current times to suddenly this alternate timeline where there is a Democratic president in the seat and not a Republican. And what does that look like and how does that work in this world? And they don't want to make it too fantastical, but sometimes they do. But the strange thing is that I know... And I think that Aaron Sorkin is really smart because I know a lot of people that are very much on the right that love the West Wing. And it's kind of baffling to me. I don't get it because they're always pushing the agenda of the other end. And they're always talking about this issue and that issue. And it confuses me how someone on the other side could be so in love with this show to the level that these people that I've talked to are. And I think that this movie is a lot more neutral than that. Which, maybe that's something that Sorkin learned from watching the last season or so of West Wing, which he was not directly involved in. Because at that point, the show becomes much more middle ground, where you're getting into the election process of the new president, because Bartlett has, done his 2 terms. So now it's this thing where you've got Jimmy Smits playing the new Democrat, and then Alan Alda of MASH fame, who I love. He's so great. He plays Arnold Vinnick, who is the Republican who's coming on board. And I think the greatest success of this show was that they don't paint him as a villain, which I think that if Sorkin was writing it, it probably would have gotten too heavy that direction.
Interesting.
I don't think this movie does that, though. And
Marshall.
Which is strange because in reality, the prosecution was much more... They were vastly less sympathetic than he makes them look in this movie. Like, there's the moment at the end of the movie where Schultz stands up with all of the people in the courtroom when they're saying all of the names, and the guy in real life has been adamant and he's vehemently denied that he did that. And because he absolutely was, he was categorically against these guys and what they did and what they stood for. He hated these dudes. He's very much not the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character in this movie, where he's like begrudgingly doing this on the part of the government. So it's this strange thing where Sorkin very intensely in his writing shows you what he believes, but weirdly he's making the bad guy, quote unquote, less villainous, which is bizarre. I don't know. It's interesting. So that's the screenplay. That's the script. The score, I thought the music was fine. I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary, super special. It felt like a big, sweeping Aaron Sorkin, everything's beautiful score.
Cinematography?
It was good. I don't know that it was super special, but I think that it did what it was supposed to do very well. and it's a very good looking movie. It's not a particularly stylized movie, but it looks great, and I don't think that we'll look back on this and think that it didn't age well or anything.
Yeah, it makes it a bit more timeless. Yeah.
Yeah. Performances. Everyone in this movie is so good. Everyone is incredible. Mark Rylance is always amazing. Maybe my favorite character actor other than Steve Buscemi. Oh my gosh, I love Mark Rylance. He's great in, the Bridge movie, Bridge of Spies.
Spies,
He's very good in that. He was the BFG, which is kind of there's a little, maybe a slight nod to that at one point where they talk about, the selling the cow for magic beans, and then, that worked out. There was a giant. He was friendly. Oh, what? The big friendly giant? He's in the room with you. But yeah, Mark Rylance is great. Sacha Baron Cohen. He's not Borat.
Good casting for the yeah.
Wow. It's very good. It's very, very good. Script, score, cinematography, performances. There's not really visual effects in this.
Unless you want to say, like, did it feel like were you ever pulled out of the 1960s?
I don't think so. I don't think that I think that it was very firmly placed in the time that it took place, and I think that it did that very, very well. And I think that was partially the dialogue, and that was partially the set design, which was really good. I wonder how much of the movie was on sets and like the stuff in the parks. Was that on a soundstage, or did they actually have a park? Did they go to Chicago to film at the actual parks? I kind of doubt that.
It didn't seem. I don't know. Yeah.
Because this movie was in development hell for, I think almost a decade. Because Spielberg was going to make it at one point. He approached Sorkin to write it, and then it never worked out. Will Smith was going to play Bobby Seale. Like, all of this stuff. I'm trying to remember. They had somebody really famous on the line for Tom Hayden. I don't remember who it was. I don't know. I imagine I can just see like Will Ferrell being cast as, very much miscast as Hoffman. But
yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. The casting is incredible in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really good. I've got a list of differences here. Let's see what else, if I missed anything. In the movie, Dellinger, he punches an orderly. That's not the word, is it? What is it? Bailiff.
Sure.
Is it a bailiff? I don't know. One of the court guards. He punches them at one point. In real life, that didn't happen. He remained, the intense pacifist. Even when Marshall struck one of Dellinger's children. What? I don't know what that's about.
I haven't read any of this.
Interesting. It was Dellinger, not Tom Hayden, who attempted to read aloud in court a list of people who had died in Vietnam, but he was immediately held in contempt and not allowed to finish. Judge Hoffman's appalling treatment of Bobby Seale is true, but if anything, it was worse than what is depicted in the movie. During the real trial, Seale was gagged and chained as shown, but the film implies that this only happened once for a short time, and that the egregious nature of this treatment immediately shamed the prosecution into moving for a mistrial and a separate trial for Seale, when in fact Seale was bound and gagged on October 29th, 1969, and he had to appear in court that way every day until his trial was severed on November 5th, 1969. That's nuts. Let's see, we talked about Fred Hampton. The character of Daphne O'Connor, an undercover agent assigned to surveil Jerry Rubin, was a complete fabrication for dramatic effect. And the film portrays Richard Schultz as a principled man, grudgingly following orders to carry out a prosecution he didn't wholeheartedly believe in. The real Schultz, who goes by Dick, vehemently supported the prosecution on a personal level, and when asked, firmly refuted the idea that he stood when the names of war casualties were read aloud. So those are the big differences that I saw. I couldn't find anything about how much of the courtroom stuff was taken directly from a transcript and how much was fabricated
or not. Right.
Which is weird to me. I would think that would be out there pretty much everywhere, but I guess not. Yeah. If anything, the trial was crazier in real life than it was in the movie, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But this
absolutely.
This is a great movie. I like it a lot. It's not. I'm not going to put it on my perfect movie list, but I like it a lot, and I think that it does exactly what it intends to do, which is stir you up and just like make you have
you
that
want
feeling.
like something interesting to watch on a weeknight. I don't know, something interesting that you can dig into more real life things. I think if you're like a fan of, how about this? Can we start talking about similar movies?
Yeah, Judas and the Black Messiah.
I still haven't seen that.
Neither have I, but I think it obviously it has to be the perfect companion piece to this movie because it is about the murder of Fred Hampton. The murder of Fred Hampton. So while the race element kind of gets a little bit sidelined in this movie, then you can go and watch another award-winning, Oscar-winning movie from the same year that this came out, and the same year that this took place.
Yeah,
Judas and the Black Messiah, starring Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton, and with Lakeith Stanfield, who I adore. He's amazing.
I think it's fun that there's a lot of different routes of things you can be interested in this movie that get brought together.
Yeah.
So like obviously if you like courtroom things, then you can go watch some courtroom movies.
A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men came to mind. Or, I mean, just if you are
To Kill a Mockingbird.
just Google 12 Angry Men. I mean, like, all sorts of good courtroom movies if you're interested in that side of things. But I think it's also not limited to that. I think I just did a Google search, movies that are like The Trial of Chicago 7, and like most of it was that vein of things.
Yeah.
I think you could also go if you're interested in the civil rights movement. There's a lot of great civil rights movement movies.
Selma.
If you want Selma. Or I was even thinking like Hidden Figures could be an interesting one for you.
Yeah.
If you're interested
Hidden Figures
in that.
is like a more fun one, I would say.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, similar ideas and thoughts. Another one that would be kind of both of those things, Just Mercy, if you haven't seen that. Super good, really thought-provoking, both talking about trials and the civil rights movement side of things. Then I'd also recommend, like on top of that, if you want like the Vietnam aspect of this, and there's a lot to dig in with that, a lot of different routes you can go. I think specifically in this movie, I think an interesting connection outside of this would be more of like the protests against the Vietnam War / like more atrocities of the Vietnam War, and instead of like painting it in like a positive picture, which anyway, so
All the President's Men would be a good one. About Woodward and what's the other guy's name?
McNamara. Nope.
No, Seaborn? No, that's the West Wing. That's one of the characters in the West Wing.
I have never seen that
Bob
movie,
Woodward
so
and the other guy who, uncovered the Watergate scandal and then no one believed them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's really good.
Also, if you are interested in all of these things, they all kind of get worked together in Ken Burns' The Vietnam War. If you're interested in that, it's very good. It just came out a couple of years ago, and they do a really good job interviewing both Americans and Vietnamese people about that. And so I think some of these guys' activism in the movie, I mean, also in real life, like bringing in like an American flag and a South Vietnamese flag into the trial and having it ripped down, and then also trying to bring in a Viet Cong flag. And the judge said, I think this courtroom looks pretty good as is, or something like that was his quote. Nice. And anyway, so if you want more of an informational side of things, Ken Burns' Vietnam War is super good as well.
Yes.
If you're looking for more of a documentary type thing.
I'm trying to pull up revisionist history here. So revisionist history is Malcolm Gladwell's podcast, which is really, really good. And in, is it season 2? Yes, in season 2, he does a series of episodes on the civil rights movement.
Sweet.
The first one called Miss Buchanan's Period of Adjustment, which is about the, forgotten effects of the Brown versus Board of Education ruling, which is fascinating. And I had no idea. Like every single episode is, something, a story that you've never heard. And it's either, something completely brand new to you, or it's this thing that you've heard of that you thought you knew about. And then there's this whole other side of it that just isn't in the history books. And it's fascinating. So there's one on the civil rights movement. There's one, well, that's the one about Brown versus Board of Education. Then the Foot Soldier of Birmingham is about the foot soldier statue, foot soldier in Birmingham, and the actual, like, kind of true, confusing, weird story about that. And yeah, there's some other one. State versus Johnson is one that I just listened to, and Mr. Hollowell didn't like that. Those are the 4. And
cool.
they're very, very good.
Sweet.
Lots of civil rights media.
Go us. Good recommendations. I'm proud of us.
Yeah. I'm surprised that I have so many. It's weird, but it's great. But yeah, Ben.
Anywho, yeah, cool. That was the show.
Trial of Chicago 7, yes or no?
Yes. Yeah. You?
Yes.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Trial of Chicago 7.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yes!
Yes! Yes! Marshall, you got to keep it down. We're in a lounge right now.
And they don't mind.
The owners of this establishment? Who owns this place?
You know.
I don't know. That's why I asked. Who owns this place?
Oh, it's just old John...
Greg Marcus?
It's old Jonathan Gregory Marcus.
The piano player? That's who's been this whole time.
Yes.
On the jazz combo, it's been Greg Marcus playing the keys.
Boom, boom,
and then he trades off with Jeff Goldblum.
Yes. He's always here.
The great jazz
in our
piano
hearts.
player. Oh, I love Jeff Goldblum.
He's great.
Anyway, so that's the show. Marshall, what's on the horizon for the Cinema Lounge?
Well, this has been the show, and we've talked about the Trial of the Chicago 7. It's a great movie written and directed by Aaron Sorkin and starring a ton of people. We've given you a lot of suggestions for movies that are similar to it, and now the show is over. We've both given it a yes. What is next for the show? Good question. Haven't figured that out yet. Ben's getting married next week. So
yes.
I might
Marriage
see
movies.
if, we could watch Runaway Bride. Oh, no. Hopefully
the
not.
Princess Bride. Yeah. Oh.
Well, I don't
do
remember.
that. So I married
an
an axe murderer. Have you ever seen that one?
No. I'm aware of it, though.
What? Like Mike Myers, like OG movie?
No, I don't like Mike Myers.
What, you don't like Austin Powers?
No, I do not.
You might like So I Married an Axe Murderer.
I might. We could watch Father of the Bride. No, we're not going to do any of those things. Okay. You're going to get married, and I'll probably get the other guy. What's his name?
Connor?
Yes.
Ben?
I'll probably get Connor.
Connor?
Yeah,
Sick.
Come and do a show. Figure out what we want to do
That's
there.
Dope. That's dope.
But this has been the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you want to get in contact with the show, you can message us on Instagram at Cinema Lounge Pod on Instagram. I'm at mparish_art on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. That is MPARISH_art. And you can email the show, still at benandmarshallpod@gmail.com. I haven't figured that one out yet. And, if you like the show, if you like what you've heard, please tell someone you know about it. Suggest it to somebody. Give us a rating on iTunes. That is a huge help. Makes a big difference, and we'll check that out and see if you've got us a review, then maybe we'll read it on the air, and we'll check it out, so maybe make it good. So thanks for listening to the show, everybody. And what do you think of the Trial of Chicago 7? What do you think? Have you seen this movie? What's your favorite part of it? Who's your favorite person in it? What's your favorite civil rights movement? Tell us about it. That's been the show.
I've got a 5-star podcast here. Or a 5-star review.
A new one?
It's entitled Wacky Zany and All the Way. I can't see the rest of the title. Have you seen this one?
No, I don't know.
It's from Jamil.
Oh!
Do you know who Jamil is?
Yeah!
Jamil?
Jamil!
Who's Jamil? Who's that?
Jamil's your man, dude.
Sure, respect.
Yeah, good old
It says,
Jamal.
"These
Jamal
guys-
man.
Jamal man says, these guys give really thought-provoking movie reviews. Add to that crazy antics, trivia, and just general feel-good chatter, and you have a podcast that everyone should listen to weekly. #subscribe.
Yeah. Thanks,
That's
buddy.
so kind.
Jamil's
Wow.
great. I haven't
Okay.
talked to him for a while, but I like Jamil.
He wrote that in February, so it's been a
Dang,
while
what?
since we've checked the 5
Dude,
stars.
sorry.
Yeah,
thing that
there's
you
another
got
one by
you here.
Warmaster. It's fine. Hey, Warmaster, thanks for the 5-star review.
I think that's
Anywho,
Jack.
we have seven ratings right now.
Wow.
So
Thanks everybody
7
for
people
rating
have
the
listened to our
show.
show.
And
Yeah.
anybody who
Yeah,
hasn't,
sorry.
check it out. Give us whatever you got. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Um,
Preach. I'm
But
desperate.
yeah, also, what should we do next week? What should me and Connor talk about? I want to know. So, thanks everybody for listening to the show. I've been Marshall.
I've marshaled to Ben. Farewell.